Today I'm walking on Almanar Drive in Green Bay, California, and I want to talk about some interesting things that are going on in the housing market. Because over the past couple of years, I have made a few videos talking about how every single time we reached a record amount of home buyers backing out of transactions. And we just seem to keep smashing those records year after year. And I think this is like kind of the last straw that sort of solidifies that we are now in an official buyer's market in the United States. And traditionally speaking, prior to now, a buyer's market was more defined by how much inventory was on the US housing market. But now it seems like a buyer's market should be defined by how buyers are actually acting and what's happening with home prices. Because even without having a full 6-month supply of inventory on the US housing market, home prices are still going down in about half of the country right now. And sellers also outnumber buyers by about 500,000 people, guys. That is kind of insane, which means that sellers have lost most of their leverage that they have had over the past 5 years. Not everywhere, but a lot of places that is now true. And at the same time, sellers are failing to adapt to this new era of selling a home. They're failing to adapt to home buyers' concerns. They're failing to adapt to new pricing that makes sense and what's in line with reality. And it shows by the amount of purchase agreements that have been canceled. As of August, 56,000 U.S. purchase agreements were canceled, which represents 15.1% of homes that went under contract. That's the highest share for August deals falling through going back to 2017. And that's when they started keeping track. And basically what's happening is there's a disconnect between buyers and sellers, and they're just not on the same page. And that's why these deals are falling apart at record numbers. In a survey of Redfin's real estate agents, 70% of them said that inspection or repair issues were the cause of canceled contracts by far as the top reason. And that was followed by almost 28% who said that the buyer financing fell through, which suggests that 30% of folks right now are having a hard time qualifying for a mortgage in today's environment. 21% also cited not being able to sell their current home as the main reason for canceling the contract. And 15% said there was a change in the buyer's financial situation. And 13% said the buyer had found another house that they preferred instead. And some of the other reasons were concerns about the current economy. And actually 11% of the time, the seller's the one who backed out. Also, low appraisals have been an issue. There's also been insurance issues as well as high mortgage rates being at the bottom of the list. But it's really not high mortgage rates that's the problem. It is the price of the house. And ultimately, when somebody sees what their payment's going to be for the house, they can get some sticker shock because they can't believe their monthly payment's going to be that high. And a small percentage of people blame mortgage rates, but mortgage rates could be 10% or 15%, and it wouldn't matter if the median home price was $100,000, you know? Now, it's not really a surprise that Florida and Texas had the highest cancellation rates across the country because the supply of new listings in these states have been absolutely crazy. And meanwhile, sellers still think that their homes will command the high asking prices that happened back in 2020 and 2021. In 2022, like that was forever ago. So many sellers are having a hard time adjusting to this new reality. The fact that it's no longer a seller's market, the fact that most people are not paying over asking price anymore, and homes are not getting multiple offers in many cases anymore either. This recent Redfin report also pointed out that the lower price homes are in the greatest demand, which is not really a big shocker, but also those lower price homes also have the highest amount of issues that come up during inspections, which makes it more likely that the buyer's going to cancel the contract. Because a lot of times these listings just look too good to be true, guys. You see a house that's in your budget, looks great, neighborhood's fantastic, whatever, and then you go look at it and it's a pile of garbage, you know? Everything needs to be renovated, essentially. The plumbing and electric hasn't been updated, and it's basically a money pit. Not to mention people have to fight higher insurance premiums. Here in California, they even have an insurance contingency on their for sale contracts to make sure that you are okay with the amount of insurance that you're going to be paying on that new home as one of your outs for the contract, because insurance is such an issue here, just like it is in Florida. In fact, pending home sales actually fell in September for the first time in about 3 months, even as mortgage rates continue to drop. And I just remember, I don't know how many hundreds of times I read in different stories that, oh, as soon as mortgage rates drop, we're going to see everybody come rushing back into the market. And in fact, it has been the opposite. 2025 is slated to be the worst home sale year on record since 1995, once again topping the record from 2023 and 2024. A Fannie Mae survey that came out earlier this month also showed that 70% of Americans believe the economy is headed in the wrong direction, and 73% think it's a bad time to buy a house. And I pride myself in being directly responsible for part of that sentiment, guys. I am happy to know that my channel has probably influenced hundreds of thousands of people out there to think this way, because it's the right way of thinking. It's the realistic way of thinking. It's not a coincidence that 73% of people think the economy is heading in the wrong direction. People are feeling it in their wallets. They're seeing it in their monthly payments for everything spiking, all while not seeing their income go up anywhere close to the amount necessary to keep up with any of it. And to give you the idea of the kind of thing that's happening out there right now, here's a little quick real estate story. One agent says that they worked with a seller who received 78 repair requests from a buyer following the inspection, and that was after the seller had already agreed to lower their asking price by $25,000 because the house needed some improvements. The buyer came back and said they would handle the cost of repairs, but only if the seller was willing to lower the price by another $100,000. The deal didn't work out. And I see that a lot here, guys. Like, I go to a lot of open houses when I'm here in California. There seems to be so many of them all the time. And you can tell certain places, man, like they just need a ton of work, especially some of these older properties here that haven't been touched or noticeably updated in at least 30 or even 50 years sometimes. And then those sellers think that they can command top dollar in the market. Like, who are they kidding? I don't blame this buyer at all for asking for an additional $100,000 in repair costs, because it costs a ton of money to make these repair costs. And even besides the repair costs themselves, the amount of time and effort and energy it drains from you is exhausting, guys. Meeting with repair people, getting estimates for everything, dealing with contractors not showing up on time or deadlines being delayed, living in shambles once you actually own the house and don't have anywhere else to go, and you're living through a construction nightmare. Like, who wants to go through that? I know I don't. And then the sellers don't want to budge and don't want to give people extra money off the sales price to accommodate for not only the extra cost, but the massive inconvenience of living there during the time. When you hear about stuff like this, it's basically a guarantee that this housing market is going to remain broken for years to come. Until prices come down back to earth, it's going to remain like this at least for probably 2 or 3 more years, I would imagine, before enough sellers realize that if I want to sell, this is the right price, and others are going to be in a position where they have to sell so they can't afford the house anymore with the ever increasing cost of living.